this is what I think Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett have talked about in past. Ki matlab, many often a thing is out there, but then suddenly something changes which puts them back on that journey. Like Coca-Cola, after the fridges came, it became popular. So similarly, for each of these companies, there will be some factor which can change, and that is what you need to keep a tab on. Today, you might say that, okay, I'm not blind to these ideas, and that's a better thing to do than saying writing them off because they have built off something of value for sure.
Hello, friends. I am Ankit Kanodia from SmartSync Services, a SEBI-registered investment advisory firm. Welcome to the 10th episode of Investing Karwa, a Mission Smile initiative where we invite investing stalwarts every month and learn from their vast experience in the investing field. For those who are joining in for the first time, Mission Smile stands for Making New Stock Market Investors Learn It Through Engaging Research. Before we begin, I would request everyone to please keep yourself on mute and switch off the video so that we can have a seamless discussion and soak in all the wisdom. You may type in your questions on the chat box. In the end, we have scheduled time for your questions, or maybe in between also we can take some questions. So now let's begin. Today our guest is Mr. Ayush Mittal. Ayush has been investing in the small cap space for over 2 decades now. In fact, he has investing in his genes as his father is also a prolific investor for many decades now. Ayush, along with his brother Pratyush, both chartered accountants, incorporated Mittal Analytics Private Limited in 2015 to provide financial services and investing tools related to long-term fundamental investing. The flagship software of the company, Screener.in, I don't need to say anything more. We all use it. It is one of the most loved and used financial portals in India. The tool allows anyone to do an in-depth financial analysis of any listed company. Ayush also manages a PMS fund that is focused towards long-term wealth creation by investing into small and mid-sized companies in their early growth stage. However, he doesn't market it at all, so some of you might not be aware of it. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Ayush. We were trying to make this work since a long time, but finally it is happening, so I am very excited. And I worked really hard on coming up with new questions as you have been interviewed a lot of times over the years. And recently you also did a Twitter space, but I've tried my best to keep the questions fresh and relevant. So let's begin. We'll start with an opening remark from your side and then straight away get into the questions.
Uh, First of all, Ankit, thanks a lot for bringing me to your platform. I think I had been following your work on Twitter for quite some time. I've been seeing the one-pager summaries that you have been creating, and that's where we connected, wherein I shared the feedback that I find them very interesting because uh, in a single page, when you cover the positive negatives, that is a very, very helpful document which people can refer to and get a sense of a company. So we've been doing several things on a screener wherein we prepare summaries, and that is where we connected, and so thanks for giving me this opportunity. I've been seeing your work and I appreciate it. Coming to our interaction today, first few disclaimers, friends. First of all, we are SEBI registered. We also run a SEBI registered PMS, and as I'm part of that, so first disclaimer is that during this interaction, any stocks or anything that we discuss is not an investment idea or something. Please don't take them as investment advice or don't take any part of this discussion as advice or any recommendation. Kindly do your homework or refer to an investment counsel. Um, uh, we might have positions in any of the stocks that we discuss, which is mainly for the reference of the discussion and not any particular insight on a stock. Yeah. So we can start, Ankit.
Thank you so much, Ayush. I'll straight away go to the first question. We all know that your father has been your inspiration and you have started your investing career working for him. But I would believe that over the last 2 decades or so, you would have developed your own style. So I would start by asking in what aspects you are similar to your father and what aspects you are completely different? If you can take some examples, that would be great.
Um, to get started on this question, first the bit of background, like how I got started. During my school time, till then I had never thought of coming into equities. I think usual वो जो एक होता है ना कि at home what is being done, you don't want to repeat that and you try to do something new for yourself. So at that time there was this IT boom, and I also always wanted to get into IT side. But soon when I was giving my competitive exams, I really understood I'm not worth it. I couldn't crack any of them. And that was the first time my dad pulled me back. And till then, I used to help him just collate quarterly results or online data for companies because internet was just starting off at that time. While doing that, I realized that this whole investing thing looked very easy. Actually, it is actually easy. Like if you see that there are companies listed out there and they all are required to report so much of data, उनको quarterly result देना है, annual report देनी है, and many of these companies are really good. They really communicate out as to what their business is, how they are expanding, what is their competitive positioning, and all those things. So for any person who is curious, who can spend enough time, he will find that there's so much out there about a company, about its products, कि you can get a lot of sense of any of the business. And if you make sense of it, then you're getting an opportunity to participate into those businesses. And at that time, तो इतना भी कुछ नहीं आता था. I was just doing some very basic stuff, just compiling numbers. And I could see that companies which are doing very well on numbers ended up doing very well on their stock prices. So slowly I started collating that better, and maybe because markets were doing well because they were coming out of a bear market, I developed my passion into this, and then I did my C and went full time into it. Um, so what is the same that we are still doing? First of all, about the team, my dad is still the most active person in our team. He's the most, he's the guy who generates the most idea today. He's the guy who's most active, perhaps. And so many of those things are still the same. We love researching on lots of new names. He's excited to look upon a new opportunity that will come across. Like tomorrow, if you share him a name which is maybe just a 20 odd crore market cap, 15 odd crore, the smaller the better for him. The name which is very small but has some very interesting insights. It is very cheap on PE ratio, price to book value ratio, something like that. That statistically what you say is Graham style of investing. So if there is something out there which looks to him like a 30 cents on a dollar, 50 cents on a dollar, he is the one who will get excited the first. So that style is still what we do, and he's an active person who runs it. Um, so we are similar on that thing. And I think it is also very important because until unless you know how to value companies, मतलब अगर आपको यही नहीं मालूम कि ये चीज सस्ती है, you can never put your weight behind it. मतलब what excites you? Only two things: one, either the cheapness, or the quality of a company is so good that you feel it is cheap. So somewhere there has to be a mismatch in terms of the price or the perceived value in your mind. And there are two three ways around it. So this is the stuff that still remains the same, that is looking at several ideas and getting into things which look very cheap. Things that have changed perhaps is also due to the kind of atmosphere we are today. Like 10 years back, 20 years back, markets were not that developed. There was not so much of data out there. So at that time, economy was just starting to take off. So obviously, the mid and small cap space was like isolated. वहाँ पे इतने participants नहीं थे, इतनी knowledge नहीं थी. So you could actually find lot of companies at throwaway prices. You could get so many high quality companies at just 5 PE multiple because there was nobody to look at. So he could get lot of such names, and that was the hunting ground. Today, I think the markets have become more qualitative. What is happening is that there's so much of data out there that you need to analyze all that. You need to see if a business is how it is placed competitively, how qualitatively it is being run. So all that quality part comes in. Today, we try to go and visit the plant of a company. We try to interact the management to get more sense on those things. So that is the only kind of change that has happened. Or I can say that the other change is that earlier we used to have a mindset wherein because of limited information, confidence, and so many things, we used to get out of stocks very early. Matlab, if we had bought something at 5p, if it becomes 15p, we had to get out. Matlab, it has really become expensive. But by doing this several times and missing out on lots and lots of big winners, which could have really changed things, we realized that we need to stay in few names where you get lucky, where you see that they have a business which is actually a bit unique out there. So that bit of thing we are trying to change and trying to practice.
Thank you. So Ayush, my next question is, we all know that the idea of screener came through your own struggles. And as they say that the best product to sell is the one that you would desperately want to buy. Plus you have made it free. Even the premium subscription, you hardly charge anything compared to what you offer. I'm sure it forms an integral part of your investing process. And I read somewhere that when you wake up in the morning, your email box is filled with alerts from the screener. So please highlight its importance for you and also give us your favorite five go-to screens or alerts along with reasons.
Sure. So, like you rightly said, basically, to give some context to it, what happened when I did my CA, I just came and joined that full time into the field of investing that we had been doing. And for me, it was kind of the similar stuff like looking at numbers, pulling out more data, putting it in Excel sheet. So that used to take a lot of time. And then 2, 3 years later, when Pratyush did his CA, he joined us. He was the guy who said, I want to don't want to go through the whole grind. मतलब पहले क्या होता था कि we had to take out like that works very hard and he used to have newspaper Economic Times का newspaper आता था जिसमें on Saturday you will get a summary in which uh, in just one page you will have lots of names of the companies in which there will be in very small fonts written कि sales growth कितनी है summary में P ratio क्या है and then by hard work you will look for names which are interesting. So that involved a lot of time, labor, and that is where screener is a step in that direction where we started to eliminate our manual processes. Whatever we were doing manually, which used to take too much of time, that is where the automation he started doing. And that first started with, we used to earlier get just 3-year data, 5-year data. So first step was bringing 10-year picture, 10-year P&L. Then started the export to Excel option just to automate the Excel sheet, all the data points that you want, the more ratios you want. So that is how step by step, whatever we have required in our own research, whatever we have felt is a feature which we need to reduce our time flow, improve our investment decision making, how to come across good ideas better, how not to miss information. मतलब for a small or micro cap company, there's so much of limited information out there. So earlier we used to try to find credit rating reports because उसमें कुछ ना कुछ अच्छा insight मिल जाएगा. Then we integrated that into Screener so that anytime there's a credit rating report update, you have it in your watch list. So the most useful feature of Screener for me is the watch list actually. So what I do is that I keep adding whatever interesting names I come across. If I come across a small cap company tomorrow, if you I after this chat, if I talk to you and you tell me 2, 3 new names, I'll first have a quick look. If I find something interesting in it, I'll just add it to my watch list. So okay, from here, if there's any fundamental update, if the company makes an announcement, if there's an update, there's a financial result, I'll get a push update. So that is the most important thing to me. So morning when I get my screener update, there's a watch list update in which I have it's a collation of the exchange announcements that have come for all the companies I track, the credit rating report, the insider trades. So it's like a complete information I'm getting for all my companies. So I don't have to work that hard now. Uh, the other thing is around screening. Like many often screens are created once in a while. मतलब आप 3 months में 6 months में जब market बहुत गिर जाएगी, you will go out to find ideas which have fallen, which are still cheap. Rather than that, we wanted to make it a push feature. So on Screener, once you create a screen, you can click subscribe by email. Next time a stock falls in your mathematical formula that it has come down to a 15p multiple, if it has attributes, ROC is this, growth is this, you will get an email update. So no more I have to go back and try to run screens which takes so much of long time. So these are 2, 3 things which I feel are super helpful for me. Um, then there are this price alert feature which I use very frequently. मतलब अभी what I do is for so many stocks I track. So I set a price. मतलब अभी it is 400 rupees. Tomorrow if it comes down to 300, I want to get interested to buy more. So I'll set a price and next time it comes down to 300, I'll get an email alert. Or maybe if something gets too expensive, I want to get alerted for myself. So that is the kind of price alert feature you can set on screener. Um, yeah. Or the other one I use quite a lot is this follow people. So like there are so many investors I really look up to. So I have set alerts on their names. So whenever these shareholding patterns are coming, like yesterday only I got at least 15 alerts for people who are holding more than 1% and I follow them. And from there, I could generate two, three new ideas that, okay, here's a guy who is a very good investor. He has taken 2% in a company in this quarter. Get up and do some homework on it. So that is how I use screener. There was another part of your question, or have I covered it?
No, so I'm sure somebody in the audience will ask this question. So better you answer this question now. Who are some of these investors whom you follow?
A lot of them. I've been following at least 30, 40 names. There are so many good investors in India in the small cap space, but quickly to games give some names, I think, which quickly come to my mind. There's no order to it, but this Girish Gulati, he's a very good investor. Dheeraj Lohia, he's a pure value investor. Graham, people won't come to know about him, but by seeing his names that he invests in, you'll get some idea. Then there's you can even follow so many funds, Abacus Fund, Equitas Fund, they do good work. Ekansh, I think, doesn't figure out in more than 1% names, but he usually does very good stuff on investing. Yeah, so these are some of the names which are like you can follow by shareholding pattern.
Great. So now I'll move on to the questions related to investing. So you mentioned somewhere that from 2000 to 2010, you were largely a desk research person. From 2010 onwards, you have started visiting companies, talking to management, and visiting the plants. However, if I got my numbers correct in one of your recent interviews, you mentioned that 70% of the portfolio still consists of stocks which you did not meet, where you did not meet the management. Can you give a few examples where you did not meet the management ever and it worked out well for you? And a few cases where you lost money and later thought meeting the management could have saved you?
Um, so first of all, I think very good question, and I think usually what happens that people from outside feel that management meeting is something very important, and this is something that creates you money. But honestly, this is not true. So best of the investors I know, some of the best, and they have a rule that they never meet management, and they have done fairly well in equities market. And the reason is that meeting people, taking a call is always a very tough process. You can't judge people. You can't make out so much by just meeting them for an hour or so. So I think this is a very tricky subject, and meeting management doesn't give you too much of insight beyond what you can do from your desk research. So always for us also, the desk research is the first thing. We do all the homework we can from the annual report, from so many documents that and we try to form a hypothesis as to what this company is doing, what they are trying to achieve, why they are good, why they are competitive. And then to try to validate of what you're thinking, you try to have a visit, go to the plant, see how their infrastructure is, how good it is. So that is how it helps me in getting some perspective. But so rather than, I'll flip the question. I'll give you two, three examples where I've really goofed up by just meeting the people. Like, uh, um there was this company, I don't know, I should name, but yeah, Kaplan Point. So we wrote about it, I think 7, 8, 10 years back. At that time, it was less than 100 crore market cap company, 50, 70 crore. But somehow after meeting, I felt that opposite, and we felt lots of things were absolutely wrong. But it has been totally opposite. It has been a big multi-bagger. It is at least, I think, 30, 40x from there. It's a 5, 6, 7,000 crore market cap company. So we got it absolutely wrong just because we visited them. While on the numbers, they were extraordinarily good. They had a negative working capital. They were growing very well. They were paying out dividend. It was debt free. So there was nothing that was wrong per se in the numbers. But by meeting, I I I took some other call, and um, and there are lots of such examples. मतलब कि um, um, uh, there's this company Balaji Amine. I visited it in 2012 or 13, and I was super impressed to see the infrastructure. They have such a huge land bank. They have such a huge factory that at first it sounded very positive in my mind. Ki, they have so much of infrastructure that they can do well. But then later when we were doing more work, we realized ki some machines were not working properly. They were planning to launch some new product, but those machines were kind of getting rusted. So we felt ki it's a total flop. They have got stuck in the new product. And maybe that worked for that 1 or 2 quarter. That was right. But see what has happened to the stock. That was a big winner. And so many often the near-term problems will cloud your mind and those things will happen. Or reverse will also happen. Like I used to be really a huge fan of a company GRP. Gujarat's Reclaim Rubber. I used to write extensively about it, and I really believe they are extraordinary people when it comes to management. They are a super set of people. They are related to MRF in a way, and I was very bullish on that company 10, 12 years back. But nothing happened for next 3 years, 5 years, and I eventually gave up. So, because you have interacted with people, you have seen their infrastructure, it is so good that many often you get into that frame wherein when the company is not doing well, you give benefit of doubt. Okay, this was the reason. This is why they didn't do well. Abhi और time do, ye karo. And many often the failures happen when you try to do too much on these things. So, so first I wanted to share this because I think many people have that perception ki, meeting management or visiting is very important. Now coming to how it helps and why one should do. How it helps is, I think, when you really want to ride a company for long term, then it helps you to get some insight as to how that company is trying to build itself. When you go visit their factory, you get a sense, okay, this guy has so much of infrastructure. This is the kind of good practices he has adopted. This is the kind of you get a feel when you go to a plant. When you meet their people, you see what kind of people they are hiring, what kind of policies they are having, what kind of communication is there from top to down. And that has really helped me. Like there's a company we invested way back, Hester Pharma. So Hester Pharma, we invested on based on numbers very early, and many often this whole management meet visit happens for us very late. Once we have invested, we have spent a lot of time. After 6 months or a year, we are able to meet them. It takes time, and in that when I went, I was quite surprised to see the huge plant they had, despite just being a 200 300 crore market cap company. Plus the kind of certification which are required when you make a vaccine, it's very tough. Plus, at several levels, the kind of people he had were PhD, R&D people. There were too many for that size of company. So those things really hit me hard, and I tried to ride that company for very long rather than getting out just because it became expensive. So that is how it helps me to write those companies. Similar example was Astral Polytechnic. We did so much of work, but I couldn't write it. That's a mistake we did. But why I say it was an excellent company, because I could see when I went and met their dealers, when I interacted with their people, I could see that this is a very different company from what we generally get to see. So those kind of things help you when you try to do this kind of work. Um, mm, how it also helps you avoid mistakes. Like there's a company we invested in, lactose. We were very excited that they were trying to build a new formula. They were trying to build a new product which was lactulose. But going to the company, seeing the infrastructure, we were very disappointed. For a pharma company, the kind of infrastructure they had that was pretty poor is what we felt. Then we could see that there was not proper sterilization. If you're making something which goes into milk related product, it has to be sterile. There has to be some quality parameters, and it really seemed that those things are not there, and we could take a call to get out. So many of these are the insights that help you and give you some context as to how big this company can be, or is it a systematic company or not. I hope it helps, or if you have more to ask on it, yeah.
No, that really helped, and it clarifies a lot of doubt which specifically individual investors have in their mind that if you can't meet the management, you have missed the bus. Many people have this feeling. So I
In fact,
really
just to add on it, I'll give two more examples. We सोचते सोचते आ रहा है, yeah. So way back in 2006 or 7, we invested in Polymedicure, and at that time it was very hard to do all this. So first, this was perhaps the earliest AGM that we ever went. When we went to the AGM, we were flying from Lucknow for the first time, and this all. So we had a lot of expectation. But when we went, there was chaos at the AGM. मतलब people were throwing snacks at the management ki, the food is bad, this that. And when you go to the AGM, you realize that 99% of the people are not even interested in the company. And if you spend time, many often you'll get swayed कि यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं होने वाला, nothing is going to happen. And that came to a mind at some point of time, and we got out early. But that was a fabulous company. Just look what they have delivered in last 15 years. From just 100 crore, it's a seven, I think at least uh, they have really grown and become a 7,000 crore company today. So, but that journey is more important. And many often what happens when you are an early investor, you have to see how the company is evolving. You'll see that at certain size, they start communicating better. They start taking ownership. They start taking care of minority. They start taking all those actions. Like in RECL, I'm seeing those changes. When we invested few years back, it was a very, very small company. There were so much of limited details. Now I see the whole transition that has taken place, and that's where I think value creation also happens. So all those things, it's a journey. It's not a one-time thing. So don't form opinions too quickly. It's very tough to uh, get this whole picture in just 6 months or 1 year. Many often it takes 2, 3 years to get to get some sense as to what is happening in a company, why they are successful, can they really go to the next level or not. So it takes time.
Right. So I have a follow-up question to this, wherein I'll ask you now that how do you prepare for meeting the management? What kind of questions do you ask, and what kind of questions do you avoid?
Very good question. So, 10 years back, in 2009 or 10 is the period where we started this journey. मतलब उसके पहले तो I was like you said, it was largely desk research, and we never thought we could ever meet any management. मतलब we never used to even think कि मतलब Polymedicure, when we went for the first time, we were like, okay, we are happy. They just met for us for a minute. That's it. We could never even think of questioning. But slowly, the big influence was Donald Francis, who runs Value Picker. If you go to Value Picker, you will see lots of management interviews that we used to do in early years. And these are very, very detailed management interviews. And you can also see the questions which are over there. And I would tell everyone to spend time over there because it's a great learning thing. So before, Donald used to go for a company, he used to be the most hardworking person. He will read anything and everything on that company, on the products, on the competitive landscape, and his questionnaire would be at least 5 pages long, if not less. And 80%, 70% of the questions will be only on past, relating to management journey, products, competitive landscape, why you are doing this, why you are better, why this company cannot dislodge you, what is the competitive landscape, and at last, what is your vision, how you want to shape up the company. So if you're wanting to meet a management, spend time, then we have to make it worthy. I many often feel very disappointed when I see so much of rush, wherein people just ask casually things over meeting. It's a important time. A management is giving you time, so you need to be prepared. You should have done your homework. You should ask relevant questions, questions which are not getting repeated. So, but any company, the past tells you a large part of picture, and lot of effort should go how they have come to this stage. Because कोई भी अगर स्मॉल मिड कैप कंपनी होती है, पहले 10 साल निकल जाते हैं केवल स्ट्रगल में, establishing yourself. And if somebody has crossed that level, come to certain point, it is because of some secret sauce, some success factors which are there. So first we should try to understand what those reasons are. Is it that the product may, somebody might have a very good chemistry in a product, he's very good in making certain product, and that is the secret sauce. So we need to spend some time on that and then try to question how this can be scaled up.
And anything you want to avoid asking the management? Anything specific?
Anything related to near term, we have been very, very clear, and I think this is something which is becoming very, very important, that you should always avoid, because never do anything which makes management uncomfortable also. Don't put them in a position where they feel that was this is not right thing to do. So these are long-term things that you want to establish, and I think ethics are very important when it comes to all these things. And yeah, I think yeah.
Before I move to the next question, since you reminded of value picker and how much of importance past is given, I just want to share a recent incident. We every week we write one pager report. Ayush, you were discussing about that at the start. So this weekend only, as in Friday, we released a report on Goldium Industries International, Goldium International. Of course, disclaimer: we don't hold the stock, and it's not a recommendation. So on value picker, somebody shared a very good discussion between Utpal Sheth and Chetan Parikh in 1999. Once you go through that thread, it's a pretty long thread. It will take you 15 to 20 minutes to read the whole conversation. The kind of insight you get about a business, of course, some things have changed over the years because it's a pretty old, but that is the value of a platform like Value Picker. And I'm sure many of us are already taking the advantage of that. So thank you so much,
I think
Ayush and Donald
what
and
you're
everyone who have made this platform.
What you have referred is actually a beautiful thing. I think all those interactions of Chetan Parekh and Damani ji and all those people, they're really awesome. If one goes back and read all those things, despite being 20 years old, there's so much of learning out there, and many of us have really learned a lot from those things. And uh, like you said, I think one thing which I missed, like when you want to go and meet the management, I think a lot, or you want to go and visit a company, it is also about understanding the DNA. This is something which remains there for certain companies. Like, you talk to very wise people and they'll say this company ऐसी चलती है, इसका ऐसी तरीका है. Why? Because they are able to understand the functioning of a company. And that is what usually you'll see is a pattern that plays out again and again. So that is what the focus should be.
Right. So moving on. So in the past 20 years, we know that you have had many winners and losers. So can you share a few examples on both the sides? And I'm not looking only for names here. I'm more interested on the theses as to what worked and what didn't work. Also, did you find any pattern as to two, three, four sectors that would have contributed the most in your portfolio? Or is it fairly diversified in terms of wealth creation?
For losers are too many versus the winners, but it's tough to reflect back and come to some common theme. But um, I think the winners usually have happened to us from more from the spaces which that also always has believed like look for companies जहाँ पे थोड़ा सा knowledge involved है, knowledge like pharma है, so there's a IP involved, there are doctors involved rather than business people only. So usually, and plus many often it was also a factor of people around you, like some of our clients, they are doctors and they are super investors, they are very good doctors and investors, so you could always uh, get some feedback from them about the portfolio of a company, how is this company, how are the products, and those things are much more helpful while forming an opinion or doing a long-term investment. So because of that, pharma has been a good area for us, chemicals. Generally, what we have seen is that that has always emphasized on export-oriented companies, and there was a natural reason for that. Rupee keeps falling, and if there's a company which is doing some good work from India, he keeps getting more competitive. As the rupee falls versus the dollar, you are getting more competitive versus the world. So many often in past we have seen that those kind of companies have really rewarded. On there was another reason that in earlier years, 10 years back, uh, domestic oriented companies didn't used to pay taxes, do business in cash. So maybe that was another reason why he chose export oriented companies, and that has still continued to work very well for us. Matlab, if a overseas client in Europe, US is buying from India, he's taking so much of pain, and he's giving you dollars. So he'll be paying you up good money. You'll be making good margins, and for him, the product to go all the way over there, it has to be something of importance. You can't be selling this commodity all the way uh, to all these areas and be doing very well. मतलब commodity भी export होता है, but usually you see all these technical things, if they are getting exported to far off areas, these are where people make good money. And if a company makes above normal returns, that is where the shareholder makes money. So that has been a focus area. uh, what we avoid, I think usually dad has tried to avoid companies which employ too much of labor, because managing people is very tough, is what we feel. And in India, if you see, the cost inflation is very high on this side. So yeah, generally, yeah.
So in terms of sectors, you have spoken about pharma and chemicals mostly.
But
Nothing else.
I think coming to sectors, what happens is what we need to be cognizant is every 4, 5 years, 7 years, maybe 5 to 7 years, a trend change happens, and you need to identify companies at that time. If you get good sector tailwind and you identify decent companies, lot many things work out very well. For example, this EV thing, it is getting popular now, but I attended Professor Bakshi's lecture 5, 6 years back, and at that time I thought, okay, let's just work on this area because this is a sunrise area. I invested in 6, 7 companies. I sold 2, 3 at a loss, I think. 2, 3 did very well, but even the ones which I sold at loss are big, big multi-baggers today. So almost everything worked out when the sector goes through that ramping growth. And that is true whenever, if in past you look at infra, real estate, all those things. But that is a theme that you need to catch from time to time. But over longer term, yes, there will be few companies that are secular, that have very good management, that have long runway, and you have to need to differentiate between companies where you need to get out after some time, and there's few companies where you should have stayed put for a very long time. So that is the two buckets we need to start preparing in our mind, I think now.
So which is that one sector today where you think, just like EV was, say, 5, 6 years back, which is that one sector today, according to you?
I don't know. One sector, we do lots of things. We are very, very diversified and we are always bottoms up, honestly. So we are not sector driven, but I think this whole defense, aerospace is something where I feel a lot of stuff is happening, and this is a pure change, fundamental change that has happened in India. Similarly, railways, when I talk to people in this industry, they are saying this is something like infra, what was 15 years back. मतलब जब infra आपको नहीं दिखता था, used to complain, that is the time infra development started happening. Today, infra is very good. So trains is some area where you can see so much of videos where government is trying to increase the speed, and for that so much of fundamental change is happening, technological change is happening. We are not going to depend on foreign technology, we are getting them developed in house, so in India. So that is where I think a lot of opportunities are there.
Right. So I'll move on to the next question now. So many small investors feel that investing in small cap stocks is not for them when there is hardly any information available, no analyst covers them, they don't hold con calls, even annual reports are not much helpful there. So how would you uh, tell them to go about working on those small cap, given your experience?
Frankly, today data is much out there. 10 years back तो कुछ होता ही नहीं था, मतलब in even in small company you will not find anything, मतलब it was tough to get an annual report, the financial not were that detailed. Today, because of so much of regulatory push compliances, companies have to really report a lot. They have to, and most of the companies have actually opened up there. There's a proper website on which you can go spend a lot of time around their products, so many things. Then you can spend time on credit rating report if the annual report is not good enough. So if you're curious, if you really want to find, there are lots of ways today. Go to LinkedIn. LinkedIn pe they will be posting something about themselves or the other, or you can try to find a network wherein people are from that industry, or you can get in touch with people related to that company and try to find. So today data is not the limiting factor, honestly, I think. It is more about that perspective. People feel कि माइक्रो कैप है तो रिस्की है या यहाँ डेटा नहीं है. But it is true. Large cap may I've never read a large cap company because I can't read so much of data. I can't read a 500 rupee 500 page annual report. It is too complex for me. While a small company, I can finish the annual report in half an hour. So it is much easier. You can understand those numbers better. You can understand a 100 crore company better versus a 1 lakh crore company. So I think the odds are actually in your favor. Competition is lesser. So you can do much more research if you're really interested.
Right. Thank you so much. So moving on to the next question. So there's a saying, no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man. If
Now,
we use
sorry,
that,
coming to the last question also, even in small companies, I think the other important thing that one should do is schedules. जब आप एनुअल रिपोर्ट पढ़ रहे होते हैं तो उसके जितने भी P&L बैलेंस शीट होते हैं, many often those schedules are something which give you a lot of insights. Like I was mentioning about Kaplan. At that time, Kaplan में the only important insight was कि they were operating on negative working capital. So a small company which is growing having a negative working capital, we talk about negative working capital in companies like HUL. We talk about companies which are very large where they trade at 50-70 P multiple, और वो जो value है वो lost हो जाती है उसमें because they are already priced for that. But if you see those trades in a very small company which are valued highly for a large company, that is where you can make disproportionate um, um, uh, value addition in your mind. Matlab, the moment you see a company getting advance from customer, that is the first uh, uh, point to get started. Ki, okay, here's a company. Why are they? Matlab, who will pay a small company upfront? Yeah, nobody. If a small company is having very less receivables, why? People are trusting him. They are paying him on time. The product is of importance. So those numbers in itself have lot of hidden insights, provided you go to the schedules, read each line down, see they don't have too much of contingent liability, how those accounts are being maintained. उस पर अगर आप थोड़ा टाइम स्पेंड करेंगे, या फिर another thing is कि gross margin कितना है. मतलब it's very easy to do a 300 crore turnover with 80% raw material cost. उसमें आपका मार्जिन ही नहीं बनेगा. But it's very tough to do a 300 crore turnover with रॉ मटेरियल कॉस्ट ऑफ जस्ट 30% एंड ग्रॉस मार्जिन सो हाई, मतलब इतना बड़ा वैल्यू एडिशन आप कर रहे हो. सो दोज आर द काइंड ऑफ इंसाइट्स ऑन नंबर्स विच विल हेल्प यू आस्क द रेलिवेंट क्वेश्चंस कि बॉस अगर इतना ग्रॉस मार्जिन है तो ये कुछ तो स्पेशल करती होगी ना. तो लेट्स फोकस ऑन दैट. लेट नॉट द मैनेजमेंट टेल एवरीवन कि बॉस मैं ये करता हूँ. देन इट इज टू लेट. मतलब क्या होता है, लाइक द आरएसएल स्टोरी. अब वो जब बड़ी हो गई कंपनी, देन मैनेजमेंट इज कमिंग आउट मेकिंग प्रेजेंटेशन टेलिंग यू एवरीथिंग एंड you can take a note. But when it was at 6p, 5p, you have to do that work
That's
and
a
take a maybe a leap of faith. Yeah.
That's a very valuable insight. So basically, what the management is going to tell the investors 2 years, 3 years down the line, you can actually see that if you deep dive.
Again, it's not that you'll be sure enough. I was never sure on RACL. I never knew. I never imagined in my life it can become so good. But at that time, those insights were there. The company was growing. It had very good margins. It had very good customers. And that's it. I just bet it on undervaluation and some growth. But as it kept delivering, as it kept opening up, you build your confidence. Your hypothesis getting validated, and that is what gives you the staying power, I would say. So that's why it's a long journey. It's this RACL is a 5 6 year journey now. So it takes that much of time before you get validated. And out of 10 such things, 4 5 6 7 will go wrong. It will not play out the way you thought. But that's okay. That's the micro cap investing. मतलब उसमें बहुत failure होंगे. Some will be okay. Some will really surprise you.
So just a follow up on that, whatever you have said right now. Uh, बेच के ज्यादा दुख हुआ है कि होल्ड ऑन करके ज्यादा दुख हुआ है? If you look
बेच
at
के
your
ज़्यादा दुख
journey,
होता है.
बेच के
बेच
ज्यादा
के
दुख.
ज़्यादा दुख होता है. Hold on decision. If you feel you are wrong, you can always sell and get out. It's a one-time impact that happens. But many often, मतलब still, despite having new winners, I always talk about Astral Balkrishna because they hurt me still the most. Why? Because Astral we got in at 3 400 crore market cap. We sold out at 1500 crore, 2000 crore, thinking yeah 3 4 5x हो गया. It is at 50,000 crore market cap. I am the biggest fool.
What about
Balkrishna,
Balkrishna?
Balkrishna value picker, you can see Donald was the guy who started on it, and he did management interaction work, homework. He did so much of work that when he presented his whole case about the Balkrishna story, that why this company has that competitive advantage, why they are so good, he created that much of data and he sent it to the CFO. मतलब we had no email, nothing. He ऐसे ही भेज दिया उसने कंपनी को. कंपनी से फोन आया, बॉस who are you? How you have so much of data? We don't have so much of data. So despite having so much of data, we righted that stock from 3 400 to 1500 crore, 2000 crore market cap, and then in 2012 or 13 they were doing a very large expansion at Mundra, Bhuj, I think.
Bhuj.
It was a very, very large expansion. But for 1 year, the company was stuck. It didn't grow, profits declined, working capital बहुत बढ़ गया. पूरे वैल्यू पिकर पे डिस्कशन है, सबने कहा कि यार कंपनी खराब है, इट्स नॉट गुड, ये वो. इन्फ्लुएंस
1.5
होके
times या
या
2
अपनी
times
खराब
debt
पॉलिसी.
equity ratio था उस समय
Yeah, कि
2013 में.
हाँ डेट बहुत था. सो आई गॉट वरीड कि डेट है, स्लो डाउन है, समथिंग, एंड आई सोल्ड ऑफ. From there, it's a 40,000 crore market cap. From 6p, it now trades at 30p. So when you see that journey, that is what you feel कि despite knowing everything, if you couldn't write, which was such a easy thing to do, कुछ करना ही नहीं है. So I think that hurts.
Moving on to the next question. So there is a saying, no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man. If we use that analogy of man and river for you and the bull market, how do you think you and the market have evolved over the last 20 years? If you can go deep into the evolution of a few key aspects of your investing style and also the evolution of market structure in different bull phases, it will help us a lot.
I think this is a very, very long and complex thing also because, market, there's so much of learning and keep evolving. Every 3 5 years, if you don't evolve yourself or learn, you will be out, I think. मतलब every 3 years back when I see what I was doing or 5 years back what I was doing, I just feel कि how stupid we were. हम कुछ कर ही नहीं रहे थे. और आज फिर लग रहा होता है कि okay, now we are doing much more stuff. And I'm sure after 3 years again that feeling will come because market is supreme, market is very fast evolving. मतलब आज I'm actually shocked with the amount of work people do यार. मतलब the kind of research people do nowadays is shocking. I can't even think of catching up. So market is very fast evolving, but uh, and you can keep yourself relevant by keeping updating yourself. Uh, from the bull and collapse thing, what I've learned, I think one key takeaway what I can share is that, every time the markets crashed, मतलब 2008-9 देखें, 12-13 देखें, 18-19 देखें या अभी कोविड का टाइम देखें, every time the biggest opportunities happen when these crashes happen. But at that time we get swayed by macros. मतलब this Balkrishna story, मतलब in 2010 or so, when we first started buying, it was again an idea suggested by one of my friend to me. Stock was falling from 600 rupees because there was a global recession, this, that, all negatives were happening in 2009, I think. Stock fell from 600 to 250, and that is where we got interested. Okay, it's interesting, ये कंपनी का ये है, इसका बड़ा प्लान है, ये सब समझा. I started buying at 250, 200 आया, I got scared, I was so scared कि बॉस दुनिया बंद हो जाएगी, यूएस में तो कुछ बिकेगा ही नहीं, ये नहीं होएगा, वो नहीं होएगा. Well, my dad was, boss, if you like it, why you're not buying more? Then it came to 180. I was like, Dad, we should sell. We should sell and we'll buy later. He was like, no, you should be buying more. And he kept buying. He kept buying till 150, I think. It bottomed out at 150 or 120, I think. That part.
120, 120.
600 ka gir ke. And I had stopped buying. Then within 6 months, it recovered to 250. Honestly, I jumped in and bought at 250 or 300. So when the worst of the time is happening, that is the time to pull trigger, be confident, not get swayed by that the world will end. But every time I have fall prey to it, it's very hard. अभी COVID का time हुआ था, we were having sleepless night because everything was just crashing one after another. So it's very tough. But yeah,
Small
this
cap,
is
mid cap
something that
was
I've
in a very difficult phase at that time.
very, very tough. It has been with me 3 or 4 times now that my portfolio has fallen at least 70% every time the market falls from peak. So it's not easy, it's very hard, especially when you're full time into it. All your net worth is into equities. But this is the only lesson I think. Ki matlab, when you are a bottom cap company guy, when you are individual investor, individual company investor, when you're very diversified, and this is where diversification is important. At that time, don't get caught in these macros. मतलब उस समय बाकी ऐसा डेटा आता है कि it's very tough to not get swayed, but this is the takeaway I think.
Right. So, moving on to the next question. So, I reread your VP Chintan Baitak presentation in Goa 2017. So, I'll just take a pause and I'll tell all the viewers to please go through that presentation if you have not gone through already. Because I think probably that was the first presentation where I started following Ayush because I was really blown away by the clarity of thoughts presented there. And it's there available on the Value Picker forum. So, you can easily go and search. So my next two questions, Ayush, will be based on that presentation. You titled it "Sowing Many Seeds," and when went on to explain how in the portfolio 10 to 15 stocks basically form 70 to 75%. And then there is a long tail of 20, 30, 50 ideas. Please explain your thesis in detail here. Plus also let us know your process of upgrading the stocks from the tail to the core portfolio.
Uh,
I'm assuming you still follow the same process.
yeah. We keep doing the same thing. So, but it's not 10-15. Actually, it's maybe 20 to 30 stocks from 60%, 70% of the portfolio. And then there's a long tail. At any point, we are invested in more than 100 stocks, I can say. And many often, because these are small companies, you don't get enough data. So whenever, basically the idea is that, इट्स लाइक R&D जो फार्मा कंपनीज करती है ना कि आपको ढेर सारे प्रोडक्ट्स पे काम करते रहना है, तो वैसे ही हमें अगर नए विनर्स चाहिए, देन वी हैव टू कीप प्लांटिंग न्यू आइडियाज. मतलब इफ यू लुक एट इंडिया, देयर आर सो मेनी ग्रेट एंटरप्रेन्योर्स. इट्स नॉट दैट देयर ओनली 10 winners. There are lots and lots of winners if you look into the history of the market. And many of them, the biggest winner will come from the most unknown name, which nobody has heard. So when there's something new that comes, takes, uh, uh, which is a big success, it takes time of 3 to 5 years to recognize. मतलब market को खुद को समझने में उसको time लगता है. If you are an early investor, it's a big advantage that you can have because every now and then things go wrong. कभी stock गिर जाएगा, कभी market में कुछ हो जाएगा. But if you are very early, then you have that advantage. So
Basically,
that
the price appreciation gives you the confidence in those small, because
maybe yes, maybe
less of
see, it
information.
has to be combination of both. If only price is moving and there's no fundamental, even after some time, then it can be manipulation that you have to be careful of. But if the fundamentals and price both are moving, that is the thing that gives you the most confidence, I think. And that is where you can also uh, upscale your position. Matlab, how you increase your exposure. You started with some idea, then when it delivers or it developments happen, then it goes to next level, and then you see, okay, abhi bhi ye sasta hai, itna महंगा नहीं हुआ है. While today you have more insights, you can buy now. But if you had not bought it earlier, if you tell me a stock today which is 100 rupees and after a year it becomes 300, I might say यार बहुत बढ़ चुका है मैं नहीं देखूंगा. That is what usually happens with most of us. While if you were there, first thing it's on your watch list, so you are more aware of the developments that are happening in that company. You are able to participate at multiple different opportunities that come during the market phases. So that's the whole idea. Other thing is that I think actually there are too many winners. Matlab, if I'm told to pick only 10 companies, it's very hard. I can any point of time tell you lots and lots of names which are interesting, which are doing something unique, where I feel कि okay अभी नहीं पता लेकिन कुछ अच्छा हो सकता है इसमें. So that kind of basket is there. Other reason of having so many stocks is I genuinely believe if you're just a small and mid cap investor, you have to be diversified. By having just 5 names, it might give you a lot of returns, but it's very risky, and things do go wrong. And if they go wrong to two, three of your core portfolios, if you're running a very concentrated portfolio, then two things will happen. One, you'll lose your confidence. You may even get out of market. I know some very smart people who exited market just because something didn't go well for them, or they got concerned on macro level and they just stopped investing. So being in market is perhaps more rewarding than better short-term returns, which people try to optimize. And by having long tail, what has also happened is that many often the smallest idea, matlab, I always give this example. Dad bought HLE जो आजकल नाम है Swiss glass coat just because a friend Zafar bhai recommended it while he came to meet us. He just bought it while he was talking about it, and that became the biggest winner. So many often we feel कि हमने बहुत काम किया इसलिए वो winner है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. There are so many success stories out there. You can get lucky by participating. There are so many brilliant minds out there, so many people having great ideas. You can pick or choose few of them.
Right. So another question from the same presentation which you shared in 2017. So I really liked from that presentation, and I think it was really profound. This particular statement: "You know a girl only after you marry her." Uh, Even though I hope my wife never gets hold on this part of the interview. Keeping jokes aside, I also remember that great Rakesh Junjanwala also said something like the same, where he said that when he first bought Titan and then researched more on it, after that he bought even more, and then he bought even a lot more. And you have also mentioned that you look at it as an R&D cost of a pharma company. So can you please elaborate on it? If you can share a few examples, it would be an icing on the cake then.
Yeah. So first part, like you said, knowing bikes is very tough. That we can't. But yeah, but it's true. Like that's what I've been trying to share. Like for any company that you invest in, I think it takes minimum 6 years, 1 year, or 2 3 years to get some understanding. सबसे पहले व्हेन वी पार्टिसिपेट इनटू अ कंपनी बहुत एक्साइटमेंट होता है ना कि मतलब अभी नई नई चीज़ देखी है ये है वो है यू गेट एक्साइटेड एंड यू जस्ट ऑन बोर्ड but it's only after some time that you realize that what you were thinking was it even on those lines or not, or many often what also happens that things change. मतलब like RACL, same example I'm continuing, not to take more names, and there's not that I'm focusing on this name just because we are discussing, so I'm bringing this name again. So in 17 or 18, I might have bought it for the first time. वो 2 3 साल तक स्टॉक कहीं नहीं चला. In between, there was a period when COVID also happened and the stock just fell 50 60% from where we bought. And you know, when those challenging times comes, those are the times when you question so many things hard. Or when the stock is not performing, I honestly do more homework when my stock falls or it is not working well. So मतलब homework is an ongoing process. It takes time. So, saying कि I can get to know everything about a company in 15 days or a month, it doesn't happen. It's a evolving picture. And um, yeah, मतलब I think it's a time taking process. Like Avanti example, if I give you, Avanti में क्या हुआ था? when we first bought this stock, that bought it because it was very, very cheap on price to book value, while there was a turnaround in the company that was happening. When we initially invested in 2011 or 12, we are vegetarians. We didn't even had seen a shrimp. होता क्या है? Shrimp में होता क्या है? Initially we thought कि maybe ये shrimp के feed some दाने type होते होंगे. It's only 2-3 years later when the company continued to perform. That is where some friends of mine said, "Ki no, this is something very good and we should do more work." And that is where we started mapping out the competitors. And then we realized, "Ki no, nobody is going so fast. This guy is going much, much more faster despite a higher base." After 3 or 4 years in 2014 or 15 was the first time when we went to the farm. We went and met the farmer. We went and met the dealers, and we realized, wow, what is this? They have a competitive advantage in a commodity like feed. They are able to give feed which is way better than their competitors, and farmers are getting better results. This is a brand leader. They have a 40% market share, and that still holds true despite the industry not doing well today. So it took a long, long time to establish all those insights, facts, get those comfort, and the company delivering again and again. So I think um, this is how it happens. And in between, you get phases where you can buy more on those things where you are getting that validation again and again from market or from their performance that this is going in the right direction.
Whereas the market participants will keep on labeling it as a commodity company, and so many other things will be raised. And that is where if
And
you've
the
done
money
your
is made
homework.
when your perception when you have a variant perception, honestly. When you have that variant perception that this is not a commodity, like I missed this stock APL Apollo. I always thought it's a normal steel company, but see what value they have created. So people who had that insight that here's a distribution network, he's an innovator, those guys made the maximum. And and that happens only, अगर आपको starting में पता भी होएगा तब भी आप उसको ride नहीं कर पाओगे because you have to see the company deliver that. So confidence takes time to build. And similarly, coming to new ideas, I think why it is important to plant them, keep experimenting on new ideas because today, when you have few winners, you will be very comfortable riding them. कुछ नहीं करना है अपने आप कंपनी परफॉर्म कर रही है स्टॉक प्राइस थोड़ा थोड़ा बढ़ रहा है यू आर comfortable in your zone. But there's always something new that is happening out there which can become very big or which can be something with a lot of margin of safety. And if you don't work on new ideas, you can never get a comparison that, okay, there's something very interesting and I want to get out of this and switch to this. So only when you turn several rocks that you can compare कि ये तो मैं बहुत अच्छा सोचता था लेकिन here's a company which is even way better. So that is the whole process that you have to keep looking at lots of companies. And there's a Darwin theory. Darwin theory says कि कोई भी नई चीज आपके माइंड में आती है if you don't act on it in few minutes you'll reject it. That's true. मतलब today if you come and discuss a new idea with me, if I don't have bandwidth, I'll say इसमें ये खराबी है वो खराबी है इसका मैनेजमेंट चोर है. It's very easy to give all these opinions. But once you have a foot in the door, you have money at stake. That is where your brain starts functioning.
Right. So now I'll move on to position sizing. So I've heard you saying this so many times in your interviews that you don't buy anything at one go. Sometimes it is over a period of 6 months or even a year. Can you throw some more color on it with the help of two examples? One where you bought your allocation very quickly, and one where you kept buying even at higher or even over several years because the company kept on executing well.
Same, matlab, I just covered now, like in Avanti case, because were doing work again and again, and every time the company was performing so well. There was a presentation I did where I showed that this company was growing at 60% or 70% in the early years, and because of that growth, every time it used to come down to 7p, 6p after the performance. So despite that growth, stock 100 ka 300 हो गया, 500 हो गया, but it was still at 6, 7p. So that is how we could continue to buy. मतलब अगर कंपनी डिलीवर कर रही है एंड द वैल्यूएशन इज नॉट ओवरबोर्ड सो यू कैन स्केल अप योर पोजीशन. आई एम स्टिल नॉट अ फैन ऑफ something like paying at 25-30 time P. I have not rarely done that. The P zone still is the relevant thing in my mind, and that is still at 10, 12, 15 for small companies. Um, um, yeah, buying instantly, I think that usually happens when we usually work on a lot of quarterly results actually. मतलब कहीं पे basically we want to bet on change, and the change can be a turnaround story. A change can be a great performance that comes, and then we try to understand that why they have grown, what they were doing, what is the reason of their success, can they build upon it and deliver. So many often that bulk buying happens when that good result, good opportunity comes wherein we feel कि यार अभी ये perform कर लिया, अगर ये चलता रहा तो stock is very cheap. मतलब many often the simple math we do is ये जो latest EPS है इसको into 4 करो. If the stock is still at 6, 7, 8 P, we get interested and we jump in. It's another matter that may happen or not, but this is the crude maths we do to get interested into stocks. And many often at those stages when you're doing that initial work and you see the relevant reasons why this performance has come and it is sustainable, you're learning a lot of new insights. That is the time where you build bulk of your position, which happens over a few days or period of time, depending on the liquidity.
So Ayush, I think I would take a break and I'll ask audience to ask a few questions here. So I'll first look at the chat box, and if there are any question, I'll just read out from there. So there's this question from Harsh Beria. How has your experience been with companies that operate in industries which has witnessed very high growth in the past, but for some reasons got stuck beyond a given scale? For example, in the past cycle, Kaveri Seeds used to be a high growth company until 2015-16, but since growth has stalled. In the current cycle, shrimp companies like Avanti Feed seem to be going through a similar phase. What has been your observation and learning in these sectors? I think it's a good question. Yeah, I'll unmute you. Yeah.
Yeah, Ankit. Sorry, I got muted. Harsh, the question is about the companies which, can you repeat it? I actually missed it because it was on mute.
Sure. So, how has been your experience with companies that operate in industries which has witnessed very high growth in the past, but for some reasons got stuck beyond a given scale? For example, in the past cycle, Kaveri Seeds used to be a high growth company until 2015-16, but since then, growth has stalled. In the current cycle, shrimp companies like Avanti Feeds seem to be going through the same
I got the
phase.
question. So, very rightly asked, because at one point I'm talking about riding companies for a long period of time, and what we are realizing again and again is that many of these mid and small companies they grow to a certain level, and that phase of 3, 5 years is like a scorching growth that happens. And during that phase, whole re-rating happens, the whole market comes into it, and that's the time to be in. So if somebody is smart enough to just get in those times and get out before that, that stagnation comes in, then that's the wiseness to do perhaps. But I've not been able to do that because first I was trying to learn to ride companies. I used to exit them very early, and many often what happens is like I'll give you two examples. Balkrishna industry. Companies get stuck for a year or two. And whenever a company gets stuck beyond a year, we have seen that massive derating happens. ये natural है, market के अंदर patience नहीं है, and people want to exit that stock and get into something better. So when the derating is happening, already stock usually falls 20, 30, 40% depending on the market situation. And because it's a 1 year of stagnation, that similar thing I've seen in Polymedicure. 2012, 13 May, 14 May, it seemed this company can go nowhere. It was stuck at around 300 crore turnover. I think today it's 1,000 crore. So वो जो blips होते हैं, understanding are they temporary or it is a issue where the industry size has reached a point where you can't grow, which might be a problem that is there in Kaveri or Avanti, maybe. Matlab, so I still don't have answer. I'm still trying to learn. I'm sitting on Avanti for last so many years. Last 5 years, the stock is half. I have my belief, but nothing has happened here. So I don't have the right answer, but I think this has to do with the industry size, perhaps. If a company becomes too big of a part of an industry, then industry growth is very important if you want that company to continue to do well. Else, you'll get stuck.
Right. Good question and very good answer, Ayush. And the next question is how has your experience been with companies where business growth and quality is good, but where promoters might not be perceived as best in class? In the growth phase, a lot of times red flags get ignored, but it comes to forefront when business goes into some slowdown. A classic example is Kitex, where numbers have not collapsed since 2016, but market cap is 80% lower versus peak.
The person is
You may
picking my
avoid
pain
the
point.
company if you
No,
don't
no,
want to.
he's picking my pain point. I was stuck in Kitex in a big way, and I
Okay.
suffered a lot. But yeah,
Okay, I didn't know
but yeah,
that.
it's an important question. I think, and I honestly, I have had all the belief that Kitex is an excellent company, and I used to be a fan of that company, and it was a disappointment the way it has unfolded, and that is where I think the management thing is very important. But I think more than the management, what happens, like management is an important part, but that's very hard to figure out because till the company was doing well, he was the guy. Mr. Sabu was the person that, uh, one will really be in awe of him. But then it got stuck in so many things, and maybe we have to take note that when a company gets hit with things like controversy, politics, all these are much, much harder things to solve perhaps for the entrepreneur. And if those things are stuck, then the company also gets stuck. So those kind of calls I think people have to take. But this coming to the quality of a promoter, how do you judge it? I have a big question mark because many often for the best of the companies when they were small, when they were unknown, whenever I've tried to do a ground check on the quality of a promoter, you will get a mixed bag. People who don't have skin in game can say anything and they will tell you this is a fraud. Even for the best of the companies they will tell you अरे कुछ भी नहीं करता है खास, for very specialized companies. So how do you take that takeaway that this guy is not reliable or he is not that uh, um, uh, taking care is one. Second, for a lot of cases which were very small, I've seen multiple times that once they reach a point, all those governance things change. Earlier they were doing something wrong or they were not doing the best of the things, but once they reach a size, they get good advisors, they get good investors, and that is where the whole re-rating and the change in perception happens. So I think the answer solution to this, which I have been able to think, if a company is very cheap to start with, doing well, you're not sure on management quality, not that matlab crook nahi hona chahiye, but if you're not sure, then better to ride and buy more maybe. But if it becomes very expensive, wherein people are really betting on lots of things, and there are management issues or quality issues around accounting and all those things, be very very careful because the moment the company gets hit into something, gets into a controversy, there's a total collapse. So that's how I've started bucketing in my mind.
So I have a follow-up on that. Ayush, so if you are riding on a company and even if the management is not great, it's not a shady management. And then suddenly you come across a news which completely shatters your thesis. And maybe the stock has come down, say 30, 40, 50% from its high. You will immediately sell or you will wait or
There's no right answer to it. Every time it's different what we do, and mostly my rule has been that I usually sell in very small quantities. I don't sell. Matlab, I would have hardly ever sold at one go. Hardly. I think most of the time I'll just sell 5%, 10%, and wait for things, seek more clarity, seek the my behavior after the action. So I'm a very very slow seller. And similarly on the buying also, I'm not at one go. I always spread it across a period of time. So
great. So the next question is a very interesting one. In the earlier part of your investing journey, you, along with the whole value picker team, used to write a lot and share your thoughts on the journey of multiple companies. However, this has reduced significantly despite you doing much more work, probably 10x of your earlier efforts. Can this change in the future?
uh, I think it's a very strange problem. What is happening is that with the growth in markets, the way the regulation and everything has been happening, so even the people, many of the friends with whom I interact, the problem is that even if you want to share something, you're many often unsure of how it can hit you or how the regulations will treat it. Because what happens is that once people start following you and it's a small company, there's obviously going to be a lot of price move that happens if you post something like that, and that is where the whole problem starts. That and that became a tricky area for many people. Or what happened that many of the people started doing some service, like many of them got registered as a investment advisor, or like we started the PMS. So that's where the conflicts come into play, and then we take a call that okay, maybe we have to limit ourselves in terms of sharing out any of the company, and continue to do sharing your interaction in the um, least way that you are biasing and share only facts or do stuff like that. So I think that's where the reason is, no other reason. Yeah.
So Arihant asked this question: what is your view on small cap and micro cap companies hoarding cash? Like some good debt-free companies have around 40 to 50% of their market cap in cash, like Ambika Cotton, Saskintech, GM Brewery, DHP Limited. So, what is your view on?
That's a good question. So again, this is the kind of area that we used to really hunt earlier, and this is something that used to give me a lot of comfort. Ki, there's a company with so much of cash, so nothing can go wrong. So again, still today, I will like to pursue these areas when they are really down under. Matlab, when these stocks have fallen 30, 40, 50% from their highs, and something great is not happening, they are near their uh, market cap is near the cash. So these are the points you can bet on them, have a lot of patience, and probably in next 2 years something good happens and you will get very good returns. This happens invariably again and again. So keep doing this if you're trying to do. But once you start chasing growth companies, when you start finding companies which are very exciting on their business model, delivering well, good corporate governance, then the value of those companies is much, much more versus the statistical cheap PE or the cash comfort on balance sheet. In a small company, if there's a lot of cash, then definitely it's an indication that the management is satisfied, they are not having lots of growth opportunities, and it comes to bite in some way or the other. The same problem I'm seeing in Avanti today. Avanti, despite whatever great they are doing in their market positioning leadership, today the cash has swelled to more than 1000, 11, 1200 crore, and because of which the whole ROC and everything falls because the cash doesn't earn anything while the business continues to do well. And if the management is not paying it out, that is where it's a long-term problem that I'm now understanding. I never used to think too much. And in a company which is too small, this is good where the management is good. But if a company is too small, there's always a risk that management can do something wrong with the cash. So that's why these trade cheap. But yeah, these can work well in 2 3 year perspective if you're very carefully pursuing them. But a growth stock is better than something which is very cheap with lot of cash.
So Ayush, I have a follow-up with on this question again. So again, company which comes to my mind again here is Goldium International, which also used to have a lot of cash earlier. Even today also it has a decent amount of cash, but that cash has come down over the last 2 years. And we passed on that company just because of that cash reason only. कि अरे ये capital allocation कुछ कर ही नहीं रहे, they keep on buybacking the stock and they don't have any strategy. But uh, today, when we look back in the last 2 3 years, actually there was a change happening in the company, and they started utilizing that cash in the right way, and the stock actually went up after that. So, don't you think we should keep a track on these companies as well, where the
Of
things
course,
can
of
change?
course. That's what the real point is. You have to bet on change.
Exactly.
The moment, so Goldiam till 5 years back when they were not doing much, and if you see in the history of the company, the MD's son has come in. They have started doing LGD now, which they were not doing earlier. So lots of changes have happened in the company, and that's the reason for that huge value creation. So, and many often these corporate actions are very valuable. So, I was saying this, but when you were talking about what are the favorite things that you do on Screener, I have this alert feature wherein I put this keyword. Alert me for any company which has an announcement में उसके अगर buyback लिखा हो, right issue लिखा हो, open offer लिखा हो. So, if any company, any announcement has that, I get a separate email alert for that. So, any company which is doing buyback, it's something to surely look into. And especially Goldiam, a company like Goldiam, which is into gems and jewelry sector, जहाँ पे nobody pays you out. That's a very valuable thing to do.
Exactly. So I see a few hands being raised, but I'll first finish the questions on the chat. So the next question is from Money. What are the activities? Uh, what activities should be part of our process? Reading annual reports, con call recordings, 2 or 3 newspaper, accounting probability, etc., etc. If you are working full time, it will be harder to dedicate time for investing. So anything you want to suggest? Basically, what he wants to say is that do you want to suggest a framework for people who are probably in their job or doing something else?
So, yeah. So I think it's a very valid question. And again, this is something what my dad keeps saying. Like when it was asked to Warren Buffett कि कौन कौन सी company है, he said, read all of them. He said, how? He said start with the A's, but that's a very tedious process. अगर हम सारी companies पढ़ेंगे, it will take too much of time, and it's without a objective. So that's where we have prioritized things like quarterly results. If a company is coming out with very good numbers, I want to pick up that company, read about it, read the annual report, con call summary, something or the other, which gives you a perspective that why they are doing well and come to a quick decision making. So you have to prioritize yourself as to what you're looking for. So that's how. Other way is that have a group of friends. किसी ने कोई अच्छा idea बताया, prioritize on that. So slowly and gradually your library will get built wherein you will have knowledge on maybe 500 stocks. That will happen over a period of time. But to start with, what is the most interesting is to be picked up. And then the usual stuff, PPT, website, numbers, annual report, yeah.
Right. So I see a few specific stock related question. I'm avoiding that because these are related to the sectors which you have mentioned. Uh, Amandeep asks this question. Since you have a lot of stocks in your portfolio, how do you decide position sizing? When do you decide to average up and how much to average up? That's a very
Very tough, very tough. We don't have a methodology. It's very informal, still intuitive, I can say. But what happens is that, once you have picked a stock, every sometime or the other, you keep thinking about something. If there are new updates coming on it, if there are new developments happening on it, or if the stock is falling, getting more attractive, these are the reasons why you want to buy more. या फिर I track something and then a friend of mine, he also reaches out, he gives me more insights. That is how more confidence happens, and if the price has not changed, I want to load up. So more buying happens as you get more comfort inside, and that can come from anywhere. I can see a value picker comment, somebody writing well, I get impressed, I'll just buy more. Somebody sharing something good about it, I'll buy more. So this is how it moves up your portfolio positioning, I would say. And similarly it will go out. मतलब you bought something but you couldn't do any work, कुछ भी उसमें अच्छा नहीं मिला, कुछ negative मिल गया, okay, I'll just get out of it someday.
So Dipesh, ask your views on the real estate sector. Any views on the real estate sector?
So we have not invested much in this sector. We don't have a strong view, but many of my friends like Manoj Dua, he's one guy who has been after this sector in a big way, and he's right in saying that India, if you look at the size of all these companies, it is not much. The sector has gone through a lot of pain. There has been so much of reforms. Now only the organized players are growing versus the unorganized. So I see all that logic, but I still can't get my head around the comfort around governance, comfort around being able to understand so many things in their numbers, predictability, and all those issues are having. But I think there's opportunity here.
I am after Manojji for last many months to do a presentation on real estate sector, but he's so this I'm taking this opportunity to say online to everyone that if he probably someday agree,
We,
because I have also had a word with him and I completely agree with his view. Let's see if we can have him also.
he will not make a presentation, but he can always have an interaction. So
Yeah,
this time you should tell him to do a 30-minute discussion, and he'll be okay to do that.
thank you so much for that tip. Yeah, I'll do that. So next question is I'll come down to Kirti. Kirti asks, sir, how do you manage day-to-day expense of home when you are a full-time investor? How to keep adding to investing corpus? This is more of a lifestyle question.
Yeah, so I think it's very hard to be a full-time investor when you're starting out and you're trying to build a capital. And so initially, one has to be very frugal. One has to go through that phase wherein capital building is happening, and it happens very gradually. It takes at least 10-year period before you can say that, okay, I have this confidence that stock market एक तो ऐसी इतनी risky जगह है, so you don't know what will happen in future. So it takes a period of two bull and bear markets to get that confidence that what you're doing is right. One. Second, that corpus becomes something wherein you can say that, okay, I can live off of this. So once it is a decent amount, then I don't think of all these things. I think then one shouldn't think of having a dividend income or कि मेरे को अभी like many people say you should create a emergency fund, this or that. I think that all is not needed. If you have a decent corpus, you can always sell stocks if needed. Whenever needed, you get money in a day or two. So I think too much of planning is not needed once you know that what you're doing is right. You have a method of what you're doing.
Right. So I think I've covered most of the questions which I thought were relevant. So I'll now move on to, I see two hands being raised. So Deepak, I have unmuted you. You may ask your question first. Deepak? Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, yeah, hello. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, sir. Yeah, Ayush sir, good evening. सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि मतलब वैसे मेरे तो बहुत क्वेश्चन लेकिन मुझे एक इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चन ये पूछना है प्रोडक्ट से रिलेटेड आपका जो स्क्रीनर में प्रोडक्ट है आप लोगों ने अभी अर्निंग का ट्रांसक्रिप्ट भी लाया है मतलब समरी जो ऑटो फीड करता है राइट सर
Hmm.
तो उसमें आप लोगों ने मतलब क्या यूज किया है मतलब बैकएंड का मैं जानना चाहता हूँ कि पाइथन यूज किया है कि
Yeah, hi Deepak. Have I got your
यस
question
सर
right? कि you are asking कि जो summary वाला no con call transcript
यस सर
feature है,
या
how
या
it is built upon. So basically,
राइट राइट सर
yeah. So my brother Pratyush and his team they kept working on it for last 2 3 months, and it's based on the algorithm that you see at ChatGPT. Use उसका किया है,
ओके
but yes, lot of internal iteration modification. मतलब how do you get the output that is based on some predefined things, and उसके around कुछ internal work है. But it is largely a help from ChatGPT platform.
okay okay sir but that is awesome sir very precise and accurate what I am seeing till
Great. I
now
hope
I think
Kiranji,
it's
if
a
you
month
if you
on
find any inaccuracy or something, do let us know. I'm happy to know
no
if
no
it
sir
is.
it's it's top of the world I guess if compared to other offerings in the market right now yeah, thank you so much sir for
Thank
your
you.
continuous improvement in the product yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. Uh, Avadut, I have unmuted you. You can ask your question.
Thank you, Ankit bhai and Smart Singh for this opportunity. We got to hear from Ayush bhai. It's always pleasure to hear from Ayush bhai, and we learn many things every time we hear from him. Uh, Ayush bhai, just one question you mentioned about that you want to stay away from labor-intensive companies, and you want to enter into the companies where there is a knowledge-based companies you mentioned is involved. So how do you think about the ITs, considering today's fall also? How do you think about IT company, which is labor intensive as well as and where intangibles are also involved?
Yes, yes. So it is not just manual labor, which is very tough to manage and scale up, and this is a specialized area. Unfortunately, we have not been good at IT. We have hardly invested in IT stocks because we are not able to figure out कि कौन सी कंपनी क्या कर रही है, उसका एडवांटेज क्या है, why it cannot be copied. ये सब हमारे लिए बहुत हार्ड रहा है. So we have not been able to invest in IT stocks. Also, usually the good ones are never cheap in this sector. It is a very well tracked sector. So we haven't done well in this area to suggest too much. But yeah, this is one area which has really grown in India. It is strength of India, and if one has good insights, one should invest.
And similar things could happen into CDMO also. It has also become labor
Of course,
intensive.
CDMO is not that labor intensive. So by labor, what I mean is, the labor that is used in lots of commodities and all those things. Managing huge number of people. Yeah, textile. Why textile doesn't
Yeah.
work most of the time?
Agreed.
It's highly cyclical. Then, if you have to grow from 500 crore to 1000 crore, you have to again employ 2000 people. अब वो 2000 people को manage करना उनके issues वगैरह very few are able to do it well enough, I think.
Still, we saw your name into one of the textile companies holding 1% and more last time, I think. Right?
So again, those names are due to value, gram kind of thing. मतलब many often you will see those companies might be very cheap based on their turnover, based on their profitability. They might be deleveraging. So that is another basket that we keep pursuing.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Ayush.
Thank you, Avadut. So, Ayush, since we were talking about IT, I just thought to ask you this follow-up question. Have you looked at the new age tech sector where most of the
Not
companies
much.
got, you are
Not
not looking at that sector at all?
not
What
too
is your
much.
general view?
Yeah, I think it's good that they have corrected because the kind of frenzy which was out there since last 4 5 years in the startup space, it was getting crazy. मतलब anything you hear, you will feel it is magic. मतलब crazy money बन रहा है, and more the company bleeds, the more the valuation it gets. So it's a reality check, fundamental check, economic check that had to happen. That has happened. And from here, I do believe that many of these companies can again create value if they become disciplined because, like Zomato example I've given somewhere that all said and done, we see this great platform which we all use every day. and these kind of things can't be redone. So if there's a product which is getting used again and again, then after a point, if it is like a duopoly, monopoly, or a very limited competitive area, then such things can be turned around. They can be run very efficiently. They can be spread to other areas that they are trying to do it to blink it. Or many of my friends are bullish on, I think, Paytm. They are saying that here's a, if they really turn around, there will be a big value creation. So again, will the companies be able to change their mindset of burning so much of cash, doing things at any cost, to becoming doing it in a more disciplined way? Because the good thing is all these companies know how to grow fast. They know how to scale fast. टेक्नोलॉजी का एडवांटेज यही है, प्रोडक्ट का एडवांटेज कि वंस यू क्रिएट इट वेल, यू गेट इट राइट, इट कैन स्केल अप 100x with no incremental cost. So that's a very powerful thing which is out there.
But I have one worry, Ayush, shares like if you look at Ola and Uber, they are also a duopoly market, but and they still have not been able to become profitable, nowhere close to profit.
Agreed.
So and even the customers or the drivers, they are not satisfied.
Agreed.
So do you think that can also happen with the case of Zomatos and Swiggy's, where they be an integral part of our system, but still maybe the value is not getting created because maybe the unit economics is not working or some dynamics are still not working?
I think what you're saying is a very right point, and that's what I'm saying, that getting out of that mindset कि मतलब when you burn so much, मतलब आपके अगर DNA में वही है कि आपने burn करके बनाया and the unit economics is not going to work out, then how much can you reverse it? It's very tough. It becomes, but then there can be changes. Like अभी अगर ओला वगैरह में हम सोचें, जो EV vehicles के आने से हो सकता है, if the cost goes down and you are able to still capture these kind of pricing, maybe there's a change that can happen. Not in particularly in this case, but this is what I think Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett have talked about in past. Ki matlab, many often a thing is out there, but then suddenly something changes which puts them back on that journey. Like Coca-Cola, after the fridges came, it became popular. So similarly, for each of these companies, there will be some factor which can change, and that is what you need to keep a tab on. Today, you might say that, okay, I'm not blind to these ideas, and that's a better thing to do than saying ki writing them off, because they have built off something of value for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Ankit bhai. Uh, Ayush bhai, first of all, big fan of screener. Without
Thank
that, our investing journey is crippled. Don't know where to start. Apart from that,
thank
so
you.
yeah. So regarding that, one thing also you mentioned, right? We took an example. I'm just taking that as an example. We talked about Balkrishna, and what they did was they did a huge capex. Timing was not right, or something didn't fall in place right time. What happens is all the ratios, basically our quantitative analysis, if I had to just go by the screener, will get screwed up because debt equity is very high. And how do I catch this in screener? Means it might be a roundabout way. For example, if there is a small cap world, if somebody is doing a capex, which is like almost like 30% or 40% of their market cap, how do I catch that? Because if they are doing a capex, there is going to be a
Yeah,
pain
we
for
have.
certain time.
Yeah, so on this line, we have already created a screen, and there are lots of screens on Screener. So if you go on Screener, explore, there on the right, you can find screens. या आपको हाईलाइट में होम पेज पे दिख जाएगा, screens पेज पे capacity expansion. This is one screen that I've created myself. So
Mhm.
if you set a alert, you will get alert of any company जिसमें उसका CWIP is more than 50% of the net block. I think कुछ ऐसे ही query बनाया था. या फिर the net block has doubled in last 3 years. So it will keep giving you such names.
Right, right, right. So
I think this is what your question was, na? To find companies which are doing a lot of capex.
a lot of capex, there is going to be like many steps over there in the sense कि okay capex कर रहा है तो उसी के हिसाब से I can understand that depth is there,
Yes.
but then how do I know that it is in the right direction? One way of doing that is like understanding the business in and out and know where they're going. But at times we do become lazy sort of, and we need those shortcuts where we can say, okay, if I do this step 1, 2, and 3 in screener, probably I will get a better picture.
Acha, you are saying how
That
to
kind of.
keep a track if their capex is going right.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that is a very hard part because everyone is looking at that. मतलब everyone is waiting कि भाई इसने सब कुछ कर लिया, अब उसका outcome आने वाला है, तो we want to get in. So I think that's not that easy. And there's too much of information, people are doing all kind of stuff to get all these insights. But uh, So again, maybe it will reflect in the numbers, it will reflect on the technical side. मतलब stock का price breakout होने लग जाता है, तो people get a sense कि things are falling in place. So there are all those things that people do. Then you can go to EPFO website, you can see the number of people they are hiring. So if those people are increasing on their roles and all those things. So there are so many things that one can do. But I personally still feel that if you get the DNA, the business model of a company right, and if the company gets stuck when it was doing a large capex and the stock falls, that's a better opportunity than trying to chase something when the outcome is about to come.
Right, Ayush.
Amar, I think Amar was talking about Balkrishna Industries,
Hmm.
and he's talking about the capex during 2013-14 when that Bhuj plant came. So one thing which, since I've been tracking this company since that time, so one thing which was intriguing for me at that time was that even though they were making a big capex and probably debt to equity ratio was also pretty high, but their uh, the cash flows which the companies were producing, so the interest coverage ratio was pretty high and comfortable even at that time. So I think sometimes these things can also give you some comfort. Or what is your view, Ayush, on that?
Yeah, of course, if so you have to many often you can take these calls during hard times ki despite so much of capex, if the some ratios are comforting, so you can drive comfort from it. But I think his question is more on the execution side, that how you keep a tab that the execution is going well. Is that right, or you are asking something else?
No, no, those are the combination. Right now, my mind is running in all direction. I use. So part of the answer is given by Ankit Bhai. That is where I need those supporting ratios. What are the things
Yes.
I look at? Like net block we look at. Now Ankit Bhai gave me a good point where we should look at a interest coverage ratio, whether it is high enough and gives comfort or not. So at least like then I can pull those blocks into place and see कि at least पिक्चर हेजी है या थोड़ा अच्छे डायरेक्शन में ही जा रहा है एटलीस्ट आई गेट सम कंफर्ट लेवल
पिक्चर तो इजी रहेगी, कभी भी डायरेक्ट पता नहीं चलता है.
देयर राइट अंकित
And that's the reward. If it
हाँ
is clear, then everyone will participate.
Exactly.
ट्रू ट्रू
Get a reward when things are unclear. Matlab, if
Thanks.
you're
Thanks, Amar, for your question. So
या थैंक्स
Ayush,
भाई
you'll be surprised and happy to know the next person to ask the question is Mr. Abhishek Basumali. Abhishek Dada, you can ask your question now.
Okay. Hi, Ayush. Wonderful session. Lots to learn. One quick question. Most of the time you are fully invested, right? So if that is the case and you get a good idea or you want to incrementally add on to an idea, then one, obviously, I think you would have to sell something. So how would you decide which to sell and how much to sell or how to raise cash?
So first of all, guys, Abhishek Basumalik is one of the oldest people not one of the youngest, but the people I know from the oldest time, and he's a prolific contributor, amazing person, and he keeps doing a lot of interesting stuff. And
And he
uh,
has been on our Mission Smile platform also earlier.
अरे वाह, nice, nice, nice. So he has so much of nice things. Whenever you interact with him, he's also always like हम stocks में experiment कर रहे होते हैं, कहीं ना कहीं market पे experiment कर रहे होते हैं. So he'll keep teaching us new things कि technicals में ये अब नया कुछ बनाया या ये मैंने automation किया, and all of these things are very very useful. Um, Coming to your question, दादा, it is always कि you have to keep thinking of switches. मतलब जब पैसे खत्म हो जाते हैं तो what we have to think is कि आज मेरे को कोई नया आइडिया आया and I want to buy. At that time I have to really work hard कि मेरे पोर्टफोलियो में कौन सा ऐसा आइडिया है जो उसके मुकाबले उतना अच्छा नहीं है, खराब नहीं है, खराब है, या ऑल्सो ऑलवेज एट सम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम आई नो माई स्टॉक्स पोर्टफोलियो में ऐसे 10 आइडियाज है जहाँ पे बहुत कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं है, बट आई एम ओके टू होल्ड बिकॉज ठीक है, कुछ अच्छा हो जाएगा, ये उम्मीद हर जगह होती है. जब कोई अच्छा आइडिया मिलता है तो आई गेट अ रीजन टू कट देम आउट. So this is how I do a portfolio review. When I get a new idea which is better than the existing idea I have, that is where the switching happens during uh, times when markets are down under or something like that.
He's muted. I'll unmute him again. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I was more sort of looking at let's say you have say 50 stocks in your portfolio, some 40 you have reasonably good conviction, 10 maybe slightly shaky, But from what I understood from your talk today and for the last 10, 12 years, you are seeding different plants. So you don't know with full conviction that something that you have seeded today, how they will do tomorrow, right? Like today also you gave a lot of examples where initially you may have not been very confident and then it sort of outperformed. So my question was more because I am facing this problem many years, and I've spoken to a lot of people, and I'm not able to come up with a good answer to myself as to how to sort of optimize it in a better way.
I honestly I don't have an answer. It's actually very intuitive at that time, at that given time. मतलब कई बार तो ये भी होता है, मैं आपको honestly बता रहा हूँ, मतलब हम लोग इतना ज़्यादा stocks में invested रहते हैं कि कई बार होता है कि दिन में buy कर लिया और शाम तक क्योंकि पैसे नहीं देने को तो सोचना पड़ता है क्या बेचें. That is the reality. So it's a forced selling that we have to do, and many often we end up selling the wrong thing. मतलब क्या होता है, फिर वो वही बेचता है जो बिक रहा होता है स्क्रीन में, जब आप पे आपका कोई अच्छा विनर है, आप सोचोगे अच्छा चलो ठीक है इसी को थोड़ा प्रॉफिट बुक कर लेते हैं, and planting a new tree. So many often those errors happen because we are not being too mindful about having a cash as a position, and we get stuck. But this is the only way I think in our mind ki by which we force ourselves to think about the portfolio. That today here's a better idea. Let me think what is lesser appealing to me. And the by doing this thing continuously, I'm trying to improve my portfolio. And I think there's a heavy cost to keeping cash also. पता नहीं, I think the market is very rewarding and we are unable to sit on cash. Whenever we have cash,
Yes,
we start making
absolutely.
stupid
Same
calls.
problem with me, but I think yeah, I got what you're trying to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Abhishek Dada. I'll next go to Manan. I've unmuted you. You can ask your question.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Manan, loud and clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Ankit and Ayush, for such a nice session. Very insightful. And Ayush, thanks a lot for the beautiful product screener that you have created that has made life easy for a lot of us here. And obviously, I've learned a lot from you over the years. I wanted to understand. You mentioned in the passing that every 3 to 5 years we feel like before 5 years we are doing something that we should not have done. So having gone through so many cycles, so I wanted to understand from you what are the top 2 or 3 changes that you have made to your investment style over last let's say 5 or 10 years. So what important or significant changes that you have made to your investment philosophy?
I think the biggest change that has happened is trying to hold. I think that is the biggest change that has happened because, like I shared earlier, we were very, matlab, maybe it's because of uh, uh, your experience, portfolio size also that these things happen. That initially you want to optimize, you want to get the best outcomes and best returns. So you try to ride a company, then jump from one thing to another and doing this and all. But doing all that, I also realized that I ended up making lots of mistakes. मतलब जब bull market चल रही होती 3 4 5 साल, then in the last phase of market, the stocks which you feel are very cheap are actually the worst ones. And every time we used to land up into something where you did very well and then you get it stuck into wrong ones and you come down under. While the good ones, which were actually good, even if they were expensive, they also fall, but then again they do very well. So that is the only change I'm trying to do in last 4 5 years, honestly, wherein I become much more patient in being on companies, riding them. If something is working, give time before taking a judgment call. Okay, बहुत महंगा हो गया. But again, there's a flip side to it. Now, if I talk when I talk about Avanti, if I'm sitting for 5 years, it is less than 50% of what it hit in 2017-18. And today, the industry has reached a point where we are questioning, will it grow, will it not? I don't have a clarity. So I don't know what is right or wrong, but this is the only change we have done. It works well sometime for some ideas. So for some ideas which are in that scorching growth phase, you will always underestimate what the kind of value creation that can happen, how long this momentum will keep going. So from those things, I feel good about the strategy. But when you overextend it, every company gets stuck somewhere. It again becomes, I think, painful. Uh, but yeah, this is what we have been doing on the how we teach our actions. Other thing is that now we try to do more homework. मतलब पहले the kind of understanding we had were very limited knowledge on so many things, and by keep doing it, you try to learn more. So that is the only other thing that has changed in our way of working.
Any changes in the thought process on the selling side that you would have incorporated?
Yeah, this only, this they're trying to hold. But yeah, so now there are two baskets that, okay, as we keep doing so many stocks, so बहुत से ऐसे होंगे जहाँ पे you know for a fact that this is not something which is very scalable. So if that is not the case, then okay, you have to get at some point of time. So वो एक थोड़ा framework बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि if there's a B2C kind of a thing, then give it a very, very long tail. If there's a management which is very, very good, then give it a long tail. For example, NGL Finechem hai. That is one company I quite love. And I don't know if it is wrong or right, but I've kept sitting on it. It has fallen 50-60% from the highs it hit, but I'm okay about it. So that's here how I'm trying to slot different companies in different basket and take a call if I want to stay with something or get out when it has done well, it has got re-rated.
Okay, that's very helpful, Ayush. Thanks a lot for this session, and thank you, Ankit, for providing the opportunity.
Thanks, Manan, for joining and asking the question. So, Ayush, if I got your answer to the Manan's question right, is basically prior to 2010, you would probably not hold on to the winners as much as you are now holding on, and
Until
willing to give them a
2016.
much longer rope.
Yeah, even till 2016-17.
Okay.
Not only till 2010. We kept doing that too much of churning and all those things till 2016-17. Even now we do. But today we are more conscious that कहीं पे अगर value create हो रही है, market is rewarding something, then market is intelligent. Market knows lot much more versus us. Second thing is that, when a company is very small, उसमें कोई interested नहीं है. When a company reaches a scale, too many people get interested. When it is able to deliver on that scale, it has to get re-rated further. So those kind of things were not on our mind. We used to get very worried when stock P used to increase from 6 to 20. Now I'm okay to stay put in a company at even at 20, 25, 30 P, provided it has that uniqueness, it has that tailwind, it has that good management which is trying to do things continuously on the growth, business quality, all those aspects.
So I hope it has nothing to do with the size of the fund now compared to what it was, say, 10, 15 years ago.
Maybe
Or that
that is
also
also a
has.
function. Maybe that is also a function because it's not easy to get in, get out of stocks. It's a very costly thing, especially in small and mid caps. It's very hard.
That really helped. So I
And
move
taxation
on.
also. Matlab, taxation is earlier it
Exactly.
was not there. Today, if you see taxation is pretty high. So if you add up all these things, you want to decrease all these things if you can.
Right. Impact, you want to reduce your impact cost.
Maybe. Yeah.
So, Atul, I've unmuted you. You may ask your question. Atul? Yeah, go ahead. Atul, you are unmuted. You can go ahead. Okay. So we'll move on to Chetna. So Chetna is our first female attendee. She's also our Mission Smile member. So Chetna, go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, sir. Good evening to all of you. Very nice session, sir. And thanks for screener. New generation will remember you like Charlie, sir, only.
Thank you
Sir,
for such kind words. Yeah.
sir, I want to ask, you were telling Balkrishna selling was your wrong decision. Then why you have not decided to purchase it again? Or it is your tendency not to purchase your stocks again?
A very good question, and that's the problem. Actually, no matter how much we think we'll be able to re-enter, it is very, very hard to re-enter stocks once you have sold. Usually, what happens when you sell, matlab, जैसे if you bought a stock at 100, it goes to 300, then it's very hard to buy at 500. And trust me, market is very smart when it comes to good companies. Like in Balkrishna, I kept a track. It's not that I was not tracking. I always thought in my mind कि अभी यहाँ problem है, अभी मैं निकल जाता हूँ. If they start doing well, I'll get back in. But that didn't happen. The moment the company started even doing well, or maybe market, big investors came at that time. I think Professor Bakshi came in, Samit Vartak came in, so many great investors came in at the point when the company was going through trouble. And after 6 months or a year, they started delivering the numbers. But before I was a numbers guy, I've kept saying ki abhi to I sold at 300, now it's at 500, numbers have not come, why should I pay up? And I could never do that. So
that anchoring bias
psychologically, it's
plays a
very
lot
tough.
of role.
Yes.
What I meant to say that price anchoring plays a lot of role over here, right?
At least maybe out of 10 such cases, one or two you will be able to re-enter. But in most of the cases, practically what we have seen, maybe others are able to do, but practically we have not been able to re-enter.
Cheta, I hope that was the
Yeah,
question.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Even partially it was answered because of taxation. I think you were telling in our earlier question. Because of taxation, also you try to avoid such re-entering.
See, taxation, to one time, if it happens, it happens. You can always think of re-entering. But usually in good cases, you'll see that market is way ahead of you.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chetna.
Thank you, Ankit, sir.
Atul, I am unmuting you again. You can try. Yeah. Atul, you are unmuted. You can just ask your question. Maybe there is some problem in your, because I see your comment. No, I can't hear you. Maybe there is some problem in your system. Okay, we'll move to, or Atul, you can probably share your question on the chat box. Puneet, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, sir. You are able to hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I have two questions. What is, when you plant a new tree, what is the minimum allocation you will put in your portfolio? And the second question is, because diversification is necessary, so what is the maximum allocation you will go? Even when you are giving a long row, and we will get tempted by, okay, I can buy more, I can buy more, I know the company more now. So there is a temptation. I can always, whenever there is a dip, like today, I will buy. But what is the maximum allocation you will go for such a company?
So in our case, what we have been practicing is that, on the lower side, it is very, very low. It can be even 0.1%, 0.2% when we start a position. And that's usually what the case is, or maybe 0.5%. On the higher side, we haven't been able to go beyond 7-8% on cost basis.
Okay.
Usual allocations are 2-3%.
So I do understand when you're saying 0.1, 0.2. I also have that temptation of having so many tracking positions and then I will start. But on the other thoughts, when I feel, that means I'm not convinced. So until I have a 2 or 3% allocation, why I'm buying itself? I am ready with my study or not. That thoughts counter me at times.
And that's a good way to think. But what I've seen is that many often, matlab, what happens is, especially in small and micro caps, the price entry is a big comforting factor also many often. And by the time, like I shared, that many often the research in itself will take 6 months. So if you just wait for a very long period for yourself to get all the answers, which will never happen, you will never be able to buy, is what we have seen.
Yeah, I understand, because I do deal in small and micro caps only. I do recognize your
And
thoughts.
many often it is in microcaps. Another thing I'll say is that it is not that you need all the answers.
Yeah,
That is not important.
let
In
market
many of
figure
the
it out by
cases,
the time we are there.
many often it is small insights, like just being aware that this company is making a product which has so much of potential in future. They are unique. They are the only one. They have a patent around it. They have something this, that. That in itself is much, much more valuable than all the homework that you can do.
Yeah. And one another thought is on the NSE companies. So Screener is a wonderful tool, but I see it is struggling with the NSE related companies on the shareholding patterns and some other inputs.
Only NSE listed, yeah.
Yeah. So what are your plans about it in the
We
future?
will try to definitely improve it. The challenge is that, for the companies which are listed on both the exchange, for the BSE, they have to file the shareholding in XBRL format. And our picking up of data automation is around that. And um, so that is one issue why we have not been able to solve. You're seeing NSE or SME?
NSC.
NSE only. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the whole reason I go to some other sites. Otherwise, I would be a big subscriber for you basically on the screen as a paid member also. So
Sure,
thanks a
sure.
lot for the wonderful tool and very good service you are providing with the consolidated notes also on the recent conf calls. That's a new thing you have started. I'm
Yes.
really, really happy with that. Thanks a lot.
Happy to know that you are finding it useful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Ankit, for giving me a chance.
Thank you, Puneet. So, Atulji, I'm trying one last time. So, Ayush, I don't know whether you know Atul Rawalji or not. He's a Gandhinagar-based micro-cap investor. He has been investing in only micro-caps for last 30 years. And I think there is some problem at his end. He wants to ask some question. And we have his 4-hour recording done, which is there on our YouTube. I'll share that YouTube link with you. And probably you'll find it very interesting.
Yeah, you told me about him, and it will be lovely to interact with him sometime and learn from his experience. So
Sure.
I've heard a lot about him, that he's an excellent and very passionate investor in macro cap space. I'll surely love to connect and learn from him.
Atulji has sent. Acha, I think he has mentioned that there is some issue with his microphone. No problem. So, Pawan, you can go
In
ahead and
reference
ask your
to
question.
the last question, I think the only NSE listed companies are hardly 12 or 15 of them, I think.
Yeah,
So that might, matlab, for others, I think the data is out there.
right, right. So, Pawan, you can ask your question now. I've unmuted yourself.
Thanks, Ankit. Hey, Ayush, thanks for the talk. One question I had was on the micro cap space, especially. How do you avoid getting married to your thesis? Like when you are pitching a stock idea, or when you're debating the stock idea between you, your brother, and your father, is it that someone takes a position of a devil's advocate and you kind of discuss through it? And the second question is, when you've entered the stock and let's say it's not performed, let's say for example RACL, you mentioned you were there for about 4 or 5 years, and in those cases, of course, you see management's doing well or management's or the business doing something. But if there are instances where you encounter that business is not going as per your thesis or the industry structure changes are happening, to what extent or until what period do you kind of hold on to that thesis?
Yeah, hi Pawan, very good question.
Thanks.
So I think I'm married to my stocks most of the time. I'm highly biased to them, and I continue to do mistakes because of them, because of overstaying. Like Dada would know, many of my friends who know me, they always say this, यार तुम तो बैठे ही रहोगे, and despite you're blind to so many wrong things or so many things not happening in those companies. So yeah, that's a price you pay. Uh, at the same time, I think we have never defined a time period that okay, अब जैसे people say ना कि 3 year तक नहीं हुआ तो I'll just exit. So we have never done that because many often in our cases we have seen that 3 years is a very normal period that we have to go through pain, and that many often has given us opportunity to buy more. मतलब what happens is कि जैसे मैंने आपको आपने RSL का example दिया, so RSL was not performing for quite some time. Trust me, because I could see numbers coming again and again, things getting better, I kept doing more and more work. I kept trying to find more, get more comfort. And because that was happening, I used to buy more. Similar thing happened to me in Sandur. Sandur mein we were investing in 2017. I got started at 12, 1300 rupees. It fell down to 5, 600 rupees. And during the whole time, I used to continue to buy. And every time I used to talk to someone, was yeah, अच्छा है. But somehow I never used to get some similar positive feedback yet because data was there, company was delivering, debt was not there. But what I try to do is that if thing is not working, I try to question my hypothesis multiple times. I try to share my thoughts to some friends, and I see that उसमें ये गलत नहीं होना चाहिए, वो फ्रॉड हो. मतलब वो कंपनी अगर कोई ये कहते कि इसमें अकाउंटिंग जगलरी है, ये है, इफ आई गेट दैट काइंड ऑफ इनसाइट एंड आई फील कि ही इज राइट, देन आई विल गेट स्केर्ड एंड आई विल सेल आउट. बट इफ आई एम नॉट गेटिंग एनी feedback which breaks my thesis, मतलब if somebody is just saying अरे ये तो commodity है, then okay, I'll continue to do what I do, basis on numbers which are telling me that this numbers are superior, these are not commodity. So I we try to do more of what we are doing in those cases, and that is where we have been able to build our positions, honestly.
Thanks for that. And sorry, one question more was, how do you focus on, since you have 100 stocks, how do you focus on which stock to focus on, let's say in terms of growth or in terms of quarterly calls? Because it takes a lot of bandwidth, right? So how do you decide that time allocation?
It's all very fluid, honestly. There's no thing that we decide too much, and it's automatically happens. The other thing is that slowly our team has been expanding. So I think that has been something that has been really helpful to take care of so many companies and things that we keep a track of. So earlier it was very small, but now we have been expanding on the team side. So perhaps that's how it's getting managed better.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Pawan. So I'll take last two questions from the chat box. Ayush. Samed asked, is there any plan to add DCF model on screener?
Um, we don't plan to add as of now because of two, three reasons. One, I think there are already lots of tools available around this that you can use. Second, you can probably also use the export to Excel option in which you can, matlab, what is DCF? DCF is basically there's the current number based on past trend or some trend that you think you can put your forward numbers. Matlab, so it's a Excel function. Matlab, if you believe the growth rate is 10%, then you can say E25 का multiply by 10 करते जाओ. So you will get next 10-year numbers. Then you have to use the discount rate. Use that and you will get the present value जो DCF calculation होता है. So you can use the export to Excel feature. उसमें आप अपना फॉर्मूला बनाओ and it will work for you.
प्रॉब्लम ये है ना कि आप लोग इतना काम कर दिए हो स्क्रीनर में कि अब लोग काम ही नहीं करना चाहते हैं. ये भी आप ही करके दे दो.
अब ये export to Excel feature हमें कभी improve करना है. So maybe in that we'll try to integrate if we can in future.
So one last question. I think Dinesh asked this question. In the context of ethanol and sugar companies, do you think they are going to be less cyclical and valued differently going forward? Any views there?
No, not much views. I have not tracked this sector closely. But yeah, I think at a high level, if you see, ethanol has been a big game changer, and that has definitely reduced the cyclicality for sure. Matlab, the kind of variance we used to see in the industry, that is not happening. The other challenge that is happening is maybe this year's sugar profits were nothing for most of the companies. So are they marginalizing themselves between segments? I don't know. कि मतलब यहाँ पे बन रहे हैं तो यहाँ पे सस्ता बेच दे रहे हैं, something like that. I don't know. But yes, the space is not that cyclical now versus past.
Right. So, Ayush, I still have a few questions. Do I have time for two questions? I
Sure,
think
sure.
it's
You can take it.
6:55. Okay. So, I think this was a very important question which I missed asking you. How important is networking with like-minded investors in your view? What are the advantages, and are there any pitfalls? Having discussion with
Networking with peers is very important, not necessarily like-minded. Like-minded, few are needed because that's what gives you confidence, matlab. So if you have someone who is having almost the different views, then you'll not match along most of the time. But having those people also is very important because, like Pavan was asking earlier, ki when do you take a call that it is too much and you're wrong? So for that you need such friends who are able to tell you, boss, this is wrong in your thesis, या इस कंपनी में ये गलत है, वो कुछ बताएं. तो उसके लिए you don't need like-minded people who are saying yes to everything. Like-minded has been based should be based on some philosophy कि मतलब there are so many friends that VP have made. They have become friends because we have something like-mindedness in terms of approach towards stocks. कि मतलब we all are interested towards small companies, we are interested towards mid-cap companies, we are interested to deep dive in certain way, we are interested to do certain kind of homework. So that kind of network is very, very helpful, I think. And it is very important to have a network which does similar stuff because that is what will keep you going. It will keep you motivated. अभी तो स्टॉक मार्केट साइकिल्स छोटी हो गई हैं बट अर्लियर दैट यूज्ड टू से कि यार अभी तो यू आर लकी कि वो 3 साल बुल मार्केट है, एक आध साल बियर मार्केट है, बट पहले बियर मार्केट यूज्ड टू बी 3 to 5 years long. So many people used to get bored and exit. So having a good group helps you keep going on. and generating new ideas and things.
And you didn't mention about any pitfalls, so you don't think there is any pitfall.
Pitfalls are there. See, what happens, the negative is कि many often people share opinions. मतलब so many times happens, एक friend है, he'll just say very strongly, अरे ये company में ये खराब है, वो खराब है. While you have done lot of homework and he has done nothing, and later you'll realize कि that was just a comment he made. So you have to have some strong uh, belief in also what you're doing, which happens with time, I think. And also take criticism along, also take feedback, negative feedback along. So it's a fine balance you have to do between both.
I'll now ask my last question, because we scheduled a 1 hour discussion and it's already 2 hours. So I'll just ask the last question now. If you come across someone who always stays away from the small cap space, Ayush, what will you say to him or her to convince?
First of all, I'll not try to convince anyone. It's better. There'll be more opportunities in the market. It is already getting too competitive, I think. But because we have tried this earlier, many often what has happened is, trying to convince others, you lose yourself. आप सही काम कर रहे हो, but because सामने वाले के अंदर इतना confidence होएगा, he will say with all the confidence, what you're doing is crap, this, that, you will get demotivated and you will leave it. Like I'm saying, कि many people pass opinions with so much of confidence on a company that you get demotivated. So I think there's no point in trying to convince people who are not ready to listen or open to you. All I can say is that microcap is a beautiful place. It is risky, but if you do your homework well enough, it is something which can change your life. I know lots of people, mentors, people who have actually seen a change in their life, wealth, fortune, everything. And just by doing very simple things, you don't need to work too hard. You don't need to be a genius. You just need to do simple things, do it consistently, and it can change your lifestyle.
That's such a lovely thought to end the session with, Ayush. And before you leave us, any parting thought or any good advice you would want to share with all our fellow investors?
Nothing that comes to mind. I think it was a wonderful interaction. Ankit, I must really appreciate you for the hard work and dedication that you have. This meeting is possible today because Ankit kept following up, kept pushing me to do this for, I think, more than 3 months now. I think at least 3 months हो गए होंगे. And many often I was stuck with few things, or very bad of me on my part, that many often I never used to respond back. I used to not see his message, thinking I'll reply later. And but he kept on and on and on and keep sending a reminder or persuasion. And so I really realized that he's a very, very dedicated and hardworking person. He has a method of around things. And the way you're doing your work, which I see on Twitter, I see a lot of value and process in that. So more power to you and your team. Not only you, I think your team is very nice. You were telling me about I think your 3 friends who have created this. Yeah, so it's not only you, you might be doing this, but I'm sure there's a team and friend group behind who are equally or even more hardworking, the way you have been asking questions and all the effort you have done. So thank you for this opportunity. It was wonderful interacting with everyone and even the audience. I think the kind of questions and everything they asked, they were very good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ayush. And thank you so much, everyone, for being patient listener and asking some really good questions. And we'll keep the recording and we'll share the recording as soon as possible to all of you. Thank you so much, Ayush, once again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.